really giving themselves a good chance to avoid some of those biggest might actually be playing. He was to
fight their way into this,
which they typically do because you've got players like Polio
of stuff like that Fate of Both Worlds or the Invisible Boundary, these bigger defensive ults. So Melio is the ability you can burn quite quickly, but he did burn it before anything was really available for Foot, so this was just for control, which they did proceed to get.
Alex was a little bit behind on the Fate of Both Worlds for Luna. Silent Seduction is going to be used, seeing what responses are going to be potentially coming out of Foot Esports, as they almost had all 6 of their ultimates, but the one player of Citadel that didn't have it on hand as the Emma Frost is actually the one that goes down first. Foot Esports are going to be at least happy to have 6 ultimates to go in for this engagement, but that fight felt like it was over before it started.
Polly gets absolutely sniped. Demon showing the value of the Winter Soldier there with that crowd control, with that lockdown, and it's an immediate move out here to try and retake some control, to try and push up, take advantage of the fact that people are getting isolated. But Citadel Gaming, they had them pushed so far up that they're already almost back at 6 and reinforcing. Blaster Barrage from Tanuki from behind. They have the Galactic Legend if they want to try and capitalize on this, but another
security, something to help them survive the fight, and he's been able to clear off. The fight has happened and jumped indoors, and Polly is leading the charge with the ultimate to give some overhealth in, make it just rats flushing them out for Foot. There was pretty much everything, 11 ultimates used in that fight texture, but it was 2 really nice Rage of Ultrons from Melio that I think dictated where this was going.
What a debut so far on this new roster for Melio. Taking control, Enzo going to try and contest them through the portal, going to try and body block, but it's a little bit off the ground, so they can't just jump over and make their way to the point here, but they need to survive the initial in-game there for Melio, who was basically on 0 ultimate, so he's already starting to build back up on this new Adam Warlock, preparing for the next engage by Foot. But Demon, 89% towards Crack and Impact, Reset City could be devastating, especially if everyone does end up grouped up for a Karmic Revival, perhaps.
And Closer does have a Fate of Both Worlds again. One of the things I was going to say before is typically you want to try and hold on to your ultimate as long as possible. So the fact that that last fight, Fate of Both Worlds was forced out from Closer instantly, just really set Citadel Gaming up to go for the lethal play straight afterwards. So now it's what's going to be the ultimate that's used first. It's the Strangler Prison that's going to force out the Luna ultimate on the other side, but still through all of that healing per second, Demon with the Kraken Impact combination is enough to break that breakpoint and make numbers favored for Foot Esports.
No more resets, everyone else is able to play nice and defensively, but Melio will. Polly getting dropped a little bit low, but is able to get out of there, but there's no healing because Alex is too busy getting taken down. Polly is just forced to run off and escape. It's a hold for Foot right now. Melio's moved away from the Adam back onto the Ultron to try and just contest this, but once again, you're up against the hit scan of Monk, you're up against that tainted voltage from Demon that could knock you out the sky. Gotta be careful on this.
There's no portal play. Oh, just in time. Enzo knowing the numbers perfectly. And pretty much she top decked it to an extent. Just got it on hand. Touches the point to at least force it to overtime. And it has pulled so much of the attention away. They see the portal on its defensive Foot Esports and go, we need to go and fight that. But it pulled people away and it allowed Polly some space to actually get the eliminations. It looks like Citadel are going to win this fight.
They absolutely will. They're going to take the flip here at 57% to 99. So they now need to hold this with only one ult really in play, and that is that Freedom Charge. But, of course, that is essentially a normal, you'd say, third, but in this case...
And Alex are both down, so it's pretty much holding on to whatever you can. Melio and Tanuki, birds in the sky, hoping to shoot down, but they have to keep themselves touching onto the point. Tanuki is finding a lot, though. We see the End Song Inferno used from Monk Mutter as an attempt to try to clear people off the point, but somehow, with no strategists alive other than Melio on the point, Citadel Gaming are holding their own.
They're holding on, but it's by the slitherest of healths. But they sustain on through. Rage of Ultron and Galactic Legend, both the aerial assault is too much for Foot to deal with. Citadel hold control. They're able to keep Phoenix off the point, and they take the 2-0, taking map number 1. It was output, but the second he was alone, he was massively staggered and was unable to really contest. But then you compared that to the amount of effort that was having to be put in from the Winter Soldier and the Phoenix on the ground, giving a lot more freedom over to Melio in the air, as well as with keeping Tanuki nice and healthy.
Yeah, it was nice to see the adjustment. You know, triple strategist is going to be a thing that we constantly talk about, and then everybody might be like, this doesn't seem ideal, but there is room to make 2-2-2 work quite a lot, certainly when you've got these drafts in play, to make some of those triple strategist characters that are more well known, and like Mantis and stuff, to be less of a candidate. This ultimate, though, from Tanuki, I think was really the turning point to stop this from going to a third point of Celestial Husk, really. So whilst we... him out just with the shots. I don't know if it was a hook that went in, but of course, as soon as he takes out Alex in that fight, the invisible boundary goes straight down, and Foot seemed to have the point. Alex has to actually switch over to Strange to maybe contest.
Nost pulling the trigger to mirror that, forcing the engage and allowing the team to step up finally. Alex, like you say, forcing out the portal, going to get immediately caught in the Carbon Crush. Close on with the fate of both worlds. Ken is going to be mirroring the Mantis clone, but Kraken impact from Demon Reset 2, taking out Enter with the simple shots. Will get taken down though. The Supernova is still going. This was over, but they're still holding. But finally, we're seeing members start to trickle down.
This fight started off with an invisible boundary from Zenost, and it's still going on at this point. It's still, though, Citadel Gaming holding on by a whisker.
They're still holding. Polly with the delay, allowing Ken to get in there with the regeneration domain, has allowed them to hold onto this fire thread. Here comes that silent seduction, but it's enough to take down Melio. Invisible boundary, not keeping the team up. Polly is just trying to keep them zoned at this point to buy time, but swings back in for their team, gets in the last couple seconds of that invisible boundary to keep the team up. God of Thunder, Blacks now on the board. It's diving to the high ground, forcing out the regeneration domain. The Thor versus Loki eternal battle has engaged onto the low ground as they force them out of position.
Kenki and Enzo are going to go down, and eventually they take that first point.
Blackcell survived being alone on that point for a bit, just pulling a Polly from earlier, was able to delay, escape, re-wrap around with the team, and then set up for the pickup onto Melio, setting them up for that first point push. But so much time was eaten there. 2 minutes and 17 seconds left, but they're sticking with the Thorn, going hyper-aggressive. Foot, who haven't shown much dive potential. They have held enough, and Tanuki's decided that, well, he's being targeted on the torch. He was able to do pretty well on the Flyer. Melioso was able to do pretty well on the Flyer last game against the Winter Soldier and the Phoenix. We'll have a quick pause here, but that thought is the straw that broke the camel's back here. Being able to dive up, and now with that lightning domain preventing flight in the area, Tanuki's decided that it's a little bit more viable in this case to go for a Phoenix of their own. This is someone who, of course, has a quick dash teleport to get out of danger if they're being dived into melee. They have a short
for esports to try and push this as far as they possibly can, and so far they have the ultimate advantage, so might want to try and pick up this fight quickly.
They're making their way in, and like you say, potentially look for an opening. But what's the follow-up right now? They have the Phoenix with that Ensom Inferno, but what's following up? Kraken Impact's not ready. Straggling Prison not ready. All they really have right now is a potential damage boost from Luna or an invisible boundary, which would just make sure they sustain on through. Whereas Citadel, they're already going for a clone here. Ken with the invisible boundary, Enzo with the silent seduction is going to try and lock down onto the backline to set them up to prevent any group up. But here comes that fate of both worlds. Enzo Inferno has to be burned into the backline, directly onto the head of Melio, and they're able to hold on the line, on the point. Healing is gone.
God.
The back line is gone. The front line is gone, and the portal cannot reach Polly. If they don't get MVP this game, then something crazy is about to happen in this second round.
Just on a character that it's not that he wasn't known for playing Venom before, he had done, but back on this team, you've got the likes of Enzo that was mainly the Venom player way back when. The control of Vanguard was the one that would typically move over to those characters when it seemed appropriate. And he seems to be fitting like a glove for this whole squad.
We're looking at Citadel going hyper-aggressive here. They've got damage boost from Alex, who's moved over to the Mantis, and Tanuki bringing out the Storm for the third time for Citadel. So far, every time they have played Storm, they have won. And they choose to the fact that they were able to hold for so long, that if they play a little bit more aggressively, there's a chance that they could just snowball and take that early point quick and maximize time to make sure that they can try and push that second point.
For esports, playing with the idea of triple strategist over on Celestial Husk, but since they're in the back pocket, so now that you actually have Foot Esports stuck in the old spawns, they're pretty much in no man's land. This is a horrible reset to run into. This could be it for Foot Esports, not only just on this map, but their time in Ignite full stop if they're not careful.
This is exactly what Citadel wanted. They're staggering. The car is continuing to move, currently uncontested. No one's even touching it. This is exactly what they need to do. The group walls are proving to be so much of an issue, but are finally starting to regroup. They're starting to get back in here, but Groot is keeping them isolated. Here comes Silent Seduction. Final Judgment makes you crowd control immune, and the damage output forces Emma to back up mid. Ult takes out Black Cell, targeting onto Emma. Isidore falls, and running Tugaska, the squirrel god, is creeping further and further. And so
seems that the stress of potential elimination wasn't really too much to worry about today. Really gives you a good question about how good that Chop team is, I suppose, when that series was as close as it was. But here, you know, you have to give FUT Esports their flowers. It was nice to see this team picked up by an org that I've adored from their time in previous games. It's a shame that that tenure is as short as it is, because it was a good squad that they picked up. I think it was just they shouldn't have lost to OG Seed, all things considered. They were the favorites there. But then you're also not expecting Citadel Gaming to lose and be knocked down to the elimination bracket that early either. So, unfortunately, I think the bracket just kind of gave you too hard of a time for FUT Esports. And you're just flat out unlucky in that case.
Really does seem to be the case. They will have to wait until next year if we get another season of EMEA, continue their journey to try and retake their title.